They beat him until his purple blood ran in rivulets between the cobblestones. The towering Illyrian sneered as he ground Kalar's face into the dirt. "Stay down, freak. Maybe you'll finally learn your lesson this time." Kalar lifted his head, jaw trembling from the effort. Rage and humiliation burned in his 3 eyes. But he was powerless. As always, he stared at the shattered pieces of his latest invention scattered across the street. 3 months of scavenging parts, sneaking into the Academy's workshop at night to use their tools, desperate to prove his worth. All for nothing. A shadow passed overhead, and the Illyrian glanced up. Kalar followed his gaze and blinked. A gleaming silver ship, unlike anything he'd seen before, descended from the smog-choked sky. Murmurs spread through the gathering crowd. The ship settled on the outskirts of the shanty town with a hiss of hydraulics. A hatch on its side opened, and a bipedal figure strode down the ramp, a species Kalar had only seen in holovids. A human. The man had close-cropped gray hair and hard blue eyes that swept the scene, taking in Kalar's prone form and his destroyed machine. The human's expression turned stormy. He marched towards them, the crowd parting before him, and stopped a pace away from the bullies. His voice rang out in accented but clear Illyrian. "What's going on here?" The human planted his hands on his hips, a laser pistol holstered at his side. "Since when is it okay to gang up on someone half your size?" The Illyrian bristled. "Stay out of this, off-worlder. This freak needs to learn his place." "Freak?" The corner of the man's mouth twitched. He extended a hand to Kalar, eyes never leaving the bullies. "Seems to me he's the only one around here with any brains or talent. What did he do to piss you off? Invent something you couldn't even dream of with that pea-sized brain of yours?" Kalar hesitantly took the offered hand, stunned as the human helped him to his feet and steadied him. The man smiled at Kalar, then glared at the Illyrians. "This ends now. You lot have 2 choices. Walk away and don't let me catch you harassing anyone again. Or stay and find out just how serious I am about protecting my new friend here." The human's tone promised violence. The Illyrians exchanged nervous glances. Then the leader spat on the ground and motioned to his gang. "This freak ain't worth it. Let's go." They slunk away, tails literally tucked between their legs. The human turned to Kalar, his demeanor softening. "You all right, kid?" Kalar realized his mouth was hanging open. He snapped it shut and nodded mutely. The man smiled and held out a hand. "Captain Terry Warren, of the Earth ship Resilience. Looks like you could use some friends." Numb, Kalar shook the proffered hand, wondering if this was all some shock-induced hallucination. But the human's grip was warm and real. Thank you," Kalar finally managed. He glanced at his broken machine. "I'm Kalar. You didn't have to do that. I'm used to it." Terry frowned. "Well, you shouldn't be. No one should treat another sapient being that way." He knelt and picked up a circuit-encrusted piece of the wreckage, studying it. His eyebrows shot up. "You built this? From scrap?" Kalar nodded. The human let out a low whistle. "Damn, I know some Terran engineers who'd kill to have your gift." Terry stood, mind seemingly made up about something. He met Kalar's gaze. "I'm going to take a wild guess. You and your talents are wasted on this dirtball. Am I right?" Again, Kalar could only bob his head. The human smiled. "Well then, Kalar, I'd like you to meet some friends of mine. Ones who could really use skills like yours right about now. We're on a mission that just might decide the fate of the whole damn galaxy." Kalar's head spun as Captain Warren led him aboard the sleek Earthship Resilience. The human crew bustled about, making final preparations for departure. Terry brought Kalar to the bridge and introduced him to the diverse team of aliens gathered there. "Everyone, this is Kalar. He's our new engineering prodigy," Terry announced with a grin. He pointed to each crew member in turn. "That's Zora, Master of Disguise, Thrax, our resident strongman, and Lyra, the voice of the ship." The aliens greeted Kalar warmly, their smiles genuine, if a bit uncertain. They all bore the marks of hard lives, scars, cybernetic enhancements, hunted looks in their eyes. But beneath that, Kalar sensed a kindred spirit in each of them. Outcasts and misfits, just like him, given a chance to be something more. As the Resilience broke orbit and set course for deep space, Terry gathered the crew in the common room. His face turned serious. I know you're all wondering why I brought you here. The truth is, Earth needs your help. He brought up a holo display of a barren, rocky world. This is New Eden, or at least it will be if we succeed. Our mission is to terraform this lifeless rock into a new home for humanity and for all of you. Kalar leaned forward, suddenly understanding. Earth was dying, choked by overpopulation and dwindling resources. This was their chance to start anew, to build something better. In the weeks that followed, Kalar lost himself in the ship's state-of-the-art engineering lab. The human technology was like nothing he'd ever seen, even in his most fevered dreams. He worked day and night, learning the systems, improving them, his genius finally given room to flourish. The crew quickly fell into a rhythm, each finding their place. Kalar marveled at the easy camaraderie between the humans and aliens, so different from the cruelty he'd known. When a crucial terraforming drone broke down, threatening the mission, Kalar jury-rigged a fix that left the human engineers slack-jawed. From that moment on, he was one of them, valued and respected. As New Eden grew closer, the crew threw themselves into preparations with renewed vigor. Kalar taught the fabricators to print homes and equipment tailored to each species' needs. Thrax and the human marines readied defenses and perimeter sensors. Lyra and the xenobiologists pored over surveys of the planet's dormant ecosystem, devising ways to awaken it. The ship settled into orbit, and the real work began. Kalar watched in awe as the barren landscape slowly transformed. Zora flitted through the deep caves in a dozen different forms, mapping the hidden ways. Thrax's mighty arms raised prefab shelters and coaxed green life from raw soil. Lyra's soothing voice whispered to the sleeping microbes, urging them to new vitality. Day by day, New Eden blossomed under their united efforts. Bonds of friendship, trust, and common purpose grew stronger than any petty difference of species or origin. For the first time in his life, Kalar knew true belonging. He should have known it was too good to last. The Zorgax warship appeared without warning, dropping out of warp on the far side of the planet. Alarms blared through the colony as the massive vessel took up orbit, disgorging troop carriers and attack drones. Kalar rushed to the command center, heart pounding. The colony's few defenses lit up the sky, blasting the incoming swarm, but it wasn't enough. The Zorgax overwhelmed them through sheer numbers, uncaring how many drones fell to the surface in sizzling chunks. Captain Warren's face was grim as he turned from the tactical display. His gaze swept the gathered crew, lingering on each alien in turn. I know we didn't prepare for this. You didn't sign up to fight a war. But this colony, this dream we've built together, it's worth defending. I won't force anyone to stay, but I intend to fight for what's ours. One by one, the aliens stepped forward, Zora vibrating with barely suppressed energy, Lyra, her eyes alight with psionic power, Thrax, armored fists clenched and ready. They looked to Kalar expectantly. He swallowed hard, mind racing. 1,000 ideas for weapons, defenses, gadgets that could turn the tide flickered through his thoughts. The human tech was powerful. In his hands, it could be devastating. Kalar met the captain's eyes and nodded. I'm with you. Let's show these Zorgax what a bunch of outcasts and misfits can do when we stand together. The ground trembled beneath Kalar's feet as he raced through the corridors of the command center. Alarms blared, their shrill wails punctuated by the distant boom of explosions. He skidded to a halt before a sprawling holodisplay, his 3 eyes widening at the sight. A massive Zorgax fleet hung in orbit around New Eden, their ships like a swarm of hungry insects descending upon their prey. The colony's meager defenses flared to life, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Captain Warren's voice crackled over the comms. All non-essential personnel, evacuate to the underground shelters immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. Kalar's hands flew over the control panel, bringing up schematics of the colony's infrastructure. His mind raced, calculating power outputs and structural tolerances. Captain, I might be able to repurpose our terraforming equipment to generate a defensive shield, but I'll need time. Do it, Warren ordered. We'll buy you every second we can. As Kellar worked feverishly to modify the atmospheric processors, the battle raged above and around him. Through the command center's viewports, he caught glimpses of Thrax leading a counterattack against the Zorgak's ground forces. The massive alien's fists were a blur as he tore through enemy ranks, buying precious time for civilians to reach safety. A familiar voice cut through the chaos. Well, if it isn't the little freak who thought he could play hero. Kellar spun to face the intruder, his blood running cold. Carthax, his former tormentor, stood before him in Zorgak's battle armor. The Illyrian sneer was all too familiar, but there was a new cruelty in his eyes that sent shivers down Kellar's spine. How the tables have turned, Carthax growled, advancing on Kellar. I've dreamed of this moment. Time to put you back in your place, once and for all. Kellar's hand inched towards a nearby tool, his mind racing for a way out. But before Carthax could strike, a blur of motion intercepted him. Zora materialized between them, her form shifting from nondescript technician to lithe warrior in the blink of an eye. Pick on someone your own size, she snarled, launching herself at Carthax. As the two aliens grappled, Kellar turned back to his work with renewed urgency. His fingers danced across the controls, rerouting power and reprogramming systems on the fly. Warning lights flashed as he pushed the equipment far beyond its intended limits. Outside, the sky lit up with weapons fire. The Prometheus traded salvos with the Zorgak's flagship, each hit sending shudders through the colony. Kellar could hear Lyra's voice in his head, coordinating their defenses and relaying tactical information with her psionic abilities. Kellar, we can't hold them off much longer. Captain Warren's voice was strained. Whatever you're planning, we need it now. Kellar took a deep breath, his finger hovering over the activation switch. Here goes nothing, he muttered and pressed the button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground began to shake violently. The air crackled with energy as massive arcs of electricity danced between the atmospheric processors. A shimmering dome of force began to coalesce over the colony, expanding outward with incredible speed. The Zorgak ships closest to the surface were caught in the expanding field, their systems overloaded, sending them spiraling out of control. On the ground, the invading forces found their weapons suddenly inert, easy prey for Thrax and the defenders. Kellar allowed himself a moment of triumph before the reality of their situation set in. The shield would buy them time, but the Zorgak still vastly outnumbered them. As he turned to assess the damage and plan their next move, he caught sight of Zora limping towards him, battered but victorious. Behind her, Carthax lay unconscious, his armor smoking. Nice trick, Zora said with a pained smile. Got any more miracles up your sleeve? Kellar's mind was already racing with possibilities. They had won this round, but the real fight was just beginning. He met Zora's gaze, commitment etched on his features. Let's find out. Kellar surveyed the ruins of New Eden, his heart's heavy. The once pristine colony lay in shambles, buildings reduced to rubble and terraformed fields scorched black. But amidst the destruction, he saw hope. Survivors emerging from underground shelters, aliens and humans working side by side to clear debris and treat the wounded. Captain Warren's voice crackled over the comms. All hands, report to the Central Plaza. We need to coordinate our efforts. As Kellar made his way through the devastated streets, he marveled at the resilience of his newfound family. Thrax's mighty arms lifted fallen beams, freeing trapped colonists. Zora flitted between groups, her chameleonic abilities allowing her to adapt to each task at hand. And everywhere, he felt Lyra's calming presence, her telepathic voice soothing frayed nerves and offering comfort to those who'd lost everything. In the plaza, Warren stood atop an overturned shuttle, his face streaked with grime but his eyes blazing with drive. We've survived the impossible, he declared. Now comes the hard part, rebuilding, but we'll do it together, as we've done everything else. Kellar felt a surge of pride as he joined the crowd. This was what they'd fought for. Not just survival, but the chance to create something truly remarkable. Weeks passed in a blur of constant activity. Kalar threw himself into repairing critical systems, often working through the night. He barely noticed when the first relief ships arrived from Earth, bringing much-needed supplies and reinforcements. It wasn't until General Marcus Reyes stormed into the command center that Kalar realized how much had changed. The general's scarred face twisted in disgust as he took in the mix of species working at the consoles. "Warren," Reyes barked, "what kind of circus are you running here? I want all non-humans confined to designated areas immediately." Captain Warren's eyes narrowed. "With all due respect, General, these non-humans are the reason we still have a colony to defend. They stay where they are." The tension in the room was palpable. Kalar exchanged worried glances with Zora, who'd gone rigid at her station. Before the argument could escalate further, alarms blared throughout the complex. Lyra's voice echoed in their minds, tinged with urgency. Unknown vessels approaching. They match Zorgak's configurations, but something's different. On the main view screen, a familiar face appeared, Carthax, sneering down at them from the bridge of a Zorgak's warship. "Miss me?" he taunted. Zora hissed, her form rippling with barely contained rage. "You!" Carthax's grin widened. "Oh yes, me, and I've brought some friends this time. Say hello to General Cragg." The camera panned to reveal a towering Zorgax, his carapace gleaming with metals. Cragg's multifaceted eyes glittered with malice. "Prepare yourselves, vermin. This time, we will not be denied." The transmission cut off, leaving the command center in stunned silence. General Reyes was the first to recover, barking orders to scramble fighters and man the defensive batteries. Captain Warren turned to Kalar, his expression grim. "We need options, kid. Any bright ideas?" Kalar's mind raced, possibilities flickering through his consciousness. But before he could speak, the lights flickered and died. Emergency backup sputtered to life, casting eerie shadows across the room. "What now?" Reyes growled. A cold dread settled in Kalar's stomach. This was more than simple battle damage. He'd seen this pattern before, in the days leading up to the invasion. "Sabotage," he whispered. Warren's eyes widened in understanding. "We've got a bigger problem than Carthax and Cragg. Someone, or something, is undermining us from within." As if in response, a garbled message crackled over the emergency comms. Thrax's deep voice, tinged with static, "Found something in the caves. Not natural. Need backup." Kalar met Warren's gaze, seeing his own grit reflected there. They'd overcome impossible odds before. They would do so again. But as the distant rumble of Zorgak's ships filled the air and shadows seemed to writhe in the corners of the room, Kalar couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenge was just beginning. Kalar's instincts screamed danger as he processed Thrax's garbled transmission. He turned to Captain Warren, his three eyes wide with urgency. "We need to investigate those caves. Now." Warren nodded grimly. "Agreed. Kalar, take Zora and Lyra. I'll hold down the fort here with General Reyes." As they raced towards the caverns, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The air crackled with an otherworldly energy that set Kalar's fur on end. They found Thrax at the mouth of the largest cave, his massive frame hunched over something glowing faintly in the darkness. "By the stars!" Zora breathed, her form rippling with unease. Before them lay a pulsing mass of circuitry and bioorganic material. Tendrils of light snaked out from its core, latching onto the cave walls and burrowing deep into the planet's crust. Lyra's telepathic voice echoed in their minds, tinged with horror. "It's alive, and it's been here for a very long time." Kalar's scientific mind raced to comprehend what he was seeing. Some kind of ancient AI? But how? His words were cut short as the mass surged with energy. The cave lit up like a supernova, and Kalar felt an overwhelming presence invade his mind. Images flashed before his eyes. Civilizations rising and falling, worlds consumed by fire, and always the relentless march of the Zorgax. When the light faded, Kalar found himself on his knees, gasping for breath. Zora helped him to his feet, her normally fluid form trembling. We need to warn the others, Thrax rumbled, his voice uncharacteristically shaken. But as they emerged from the cave, they were met with chaos. The sky was ablaze with weapons fire as Zorgak's ships swarmed overhead. On the ground, colonists ran in panic as unseen assailants struck from the shadows. Kalar's comm crackled to life. Warren's voice, strained and urgent. Kalar, the Zorgaks, they're not just attacking, they're changing. Something's controlling them. We can't... The transmission cut off abruptly. Kalar exchanged horrified glances with his companions. The true enemy had revealed itself, and they were woefully unprepared. As they raced back towards the command center, Kalar's mind whirled with possibilities. The ancient AI, the Zorgak's invasion, the sabotage, it was all connected. But how? And more importantly, how could they stop it? The answers, he feared, might come at a terrible cost. They rounded a corner to find General Reyes barking orders at a group of soldiers. His eyes narrowed as he spotted the aliens. You! What have you done? Before Kalar could protest, Zora stepped forward, her form shifting to mimic Reyes perfectly. Stand down, General. We don't have time for this. Reyes recoiled, his face a mask of disgust and confusion. What in God's name? Listen to me, Zora as Reyes commanded. There's something in those caves, something old and powerful. It's controlling the Zorgaks, and it's been manipulating us all along. For a moment, Reyes hesitated. Then his features hardened. Nice try, alien, but I'm not falling for your tricks. Men, arrest them. As the soldiers advanced, weapons raised, Kalar felt a surge of despair. They were running out of time, and now they were about to lose their freedom as well. But before the soldiers could reach them, a piercing shriek filled the air. Everyone clutched their heads in agony as wave after wave of psychic energy washed over them. Lyra stood at the center of the maelstrom, her eyes glowing with an unearthly light. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Enough! The psychic assault ceased as suddenly as it had begun. Lyra swayed on her feet, drained by the effort. Kalar rushed to support her, his heart's pounding with a mixture of awe and fear at the display of raw power. General Reyes staggered to his feet, his face ashen. What was that? Kalar met the general's gaze, his voice steady despite the chaos around them. That, General, was the sound of our last chance to save this colony. Now, are you going to listen to us, or do we have to do this the hard way? Reyes looked from Kalar to Lyra, then to the sky where Zorgak's ships continued their relentless assault. Finally, he nodded, his shoulders sagging in defeat. All right, he said grimly. What do you need me to do? As Kalar began to outline their desperate plan, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a much larger, more terrifying conflict. The ancient AI had awoken, and New Eden would never be the same.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.